Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Understandable Economics, because understanding our economy is easier than you think and more important than you know, by Howard Yaruss. Also narrated by Howard Yaruss. Preface. Albert Einstein said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Although many economists are reluctant to admit it, economics is not a scientific discipline that requires expert knowledge and specialized tools to gain understanding. It's not like biology, where you need to know organic chemistry and have access to a microscope and other equipment to know what's going on in living cells. It's not like astrophysics, where you need to know the relationships among the forces in the universe and have access to powerful telescopes to figure out the properties of a black hole. Like psychology, economics is a social science, an attempt to understand human interactions and how they affect the world around us. It focuses on those relationships as they relate to money, as well as the goods, services, and resources money buys. In order to tease out some precision regarding those relationships, professional economists use data and mathematical tools. But the fundamental relationships themselves will become apparent if you're willing to observe the world carefully and apply your own common sense. The goal of this book is to help you do just that. I'm not going to tell you how or what to think. There is no shortage of authors, pundits, influencers, and Twitter celebrities happy to do that. My aim is to demystify our economy by engaging with it in a direct, practical, and I hope entertaining manner. I want you to be able to think through these issues for yourself and draw your own conclusions. Not all of our conclusions will be the same, but the objectives are that they will all be based on how the world actually works and provide insight into what policies could meaningfully improve our economic well-being. I'm sure many of you have wondered about the following. Why is economic inequality soaring, and what can we do about it? Is there an alternative to capitalism that will solve more problems than it creates? Why do the green slips of paper in our wallets and Bitcoin have value? Could alternative currencies replace the dollar? Do tax cuts for the wealthy create jobs or just more inequality? Why do so many people believe free trade is good if some people lose jobs as a result? How can we influence the behavior of corporations? Why does the economy regularly turn down, and how can we get it back on track? What is the Federal Reserve System, and how does it affect us? Is our national debt too big, and should it limit future government spending? What policies would help grow the economy? Understandable Economics provides necessary background information and discusses what's going on in the real world so that you can respond to questions such as these with insight and confidence. This may be your first attempt to understand what drives our economy, since most Americans never take a course in economics. Those of you who have taken an economics course were probably confronted with a bewildering array of jargon, formulas, graphs, and assumptions that seem to have little connection to reality, leaving you with a limited understanding at best of these issues. Most books on the subject take the same dry, technical approach, quickly sapping the interest of all but the most determined readers. I know this because I was one of the determined ones who studied economics and slogged through so many courses and countless books on the subject. Why was I so determined? I grew up in Brooklyn in a family that often faced financial difficulties. I started working in my teens and spent a good part of my time as a young adult helping my father in his grocery store. I became painfully aware of the great disparities in education, security, material well-being, and opportunity. I saw how those inequalities caused some people to become cynical, resigned, or indifferent, while others became determined to overcome them. I became fascinated by them. I felt that if I wanted to live in a more just and productive society, I first had to understand how it worked. I believe the same is true for you. I want you to be able to identify better solutions for the problems we face so you are not dependent on others for direction. I want you to be able to assess which politicians are proposing policies that would grow our economy and provide more opportunity. I want you to be able to advocate for solutions with the confidence that an understanding of the economic system brings. I want you to feel empowered to defend those solutions against the inaccurate criticisms so prevalent in social media echo chambers. The need for this understanding is more important now than ever. The belief that our economic system is failing is at a record high, and for good reason. Incomes are stagnating, middle-class jobs are disappearing, the economy is growing more slowly, and the meager gains produced are almost exclusively going to those who are already wealthy. There has been a wide range of reactions to these economic changes, from Occupy Wall Street to the election of Donald Trump. What is the one thing all of these reactions have in common? They have not resulted in any significant positive change in the lives of most Americans. This book seeks to change that. I believe if more of us were armed with a better understanding of how the economy works, more constructive solutions for the problems we face would be implemented, and we would finally see the economy improve for the average person. Whether your own goal is to change the world, to better evaluate candidates for public office, or simply to be better informed, my hope is that this book will help you assess what is possible and inspire you to make our nation more equitable and productive. As people often correctly say, democracy is not a spectator sport. Its health depends upon the participation of well-informed people like yourself. Part 1. The Economic System. Chapter 1. Capitalism. What gets made and who gets what. Winston Churchill said the inherent vice of capitalism is the unequal sharing of blessings. The inherent virtue of socialism is the equal sharing of miseries. Capitalism, socialism, other isms, and reality. What do Helen Keller, Adolf Hitler, Oscar Wilde, Joseph Stalin, and Nelson Mandela all have in common? They all called themselves socialists. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump, who broke all conventions and radically departed from the status quo, is called conservative. People who fault the media for not sticking to the truth are called liberal, and sycophants who make a living by cozying up to politicians are called capitalist. Clearly, many of the key terms used to describe economic and political systems have lost their meanings. Labels like capitalist and socialist have become so distorted and politicized over time that they serve more often as insults than as a succinct and accurate summary of someone's worldview. Therefore, they aren't particularly useful in helping us to look fairly and objectively at our economic system and gain insight into how it actually works. In order to start understanding the economy, we need to begin with the most fundamental economic questions. Who gets what? And who does what? Today, with so much more stuff to allocate, such as cars, phones, college educations, and books on economics, and so many things to do, such as building cars, assembling phones, teaching, and writing books on economics, countless decisions have to be made. How can we make these decisions? On one hand, these decisions could be made collectively by the government. In this scenario, the government owns everything and makes all the decisions. It decides how much food to produce and who produces it, and how much coal to mine and who mines it. It decides who gets the mansion on the coast and who gets stuck with the cramped apartment near the factory. Karl Marx wrote about this collectivist system, which is often summed up as from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. This system is similar to communism and Marxism as defined in most textbooks. On the other hand, these decisions could be made individually. In this scenario, everything is privately owned. Each person is free to do whatever they want with their time and resources. Clearly, these decisions are linked, since what you choose to do with your time greatly affects how much you can afford to buy and vice versa. But the government has no or a very limited role in these decisions. In the extreme version of this system, government doesn't even exist. In the less extreme version, the government has a limited...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?